What's up everybody, my name's Big Cam and welcome back to another movie review, and today we are talking about 2024's Werewolves from director Stephen C. Millers, that I don't recognize too much of his work, but it looks like he's worked with Bruce Willis quite a bit with the movie Extraction, First Kill, Marauders, and he's done a couple of other films. The only one I necessarily haven't seen but I recognize is Escape Plan 2 with Sly Stallone, and Dave Bautista's in that as well. But this 2024 film I think came out just at the end of 2024. Barely a 2024 movie, but definitely not necessarily a 2025, although this is the first time I'm able to see it now. And it is now streaming on Hulu, and you know, it's perfect for spooky season, werewolves, vampires, you know, if you're into one of those type of films. Me personally, I love a good werewolf film, and I liked how different this was. You know, like this werewolf film, it had this idea of like the supermoon, where like, you know, it turns a bunch of people, you know, I think they said billions or millions of people into werewolves, and then, you know, every like supermoon they all turn into werewolves all over again. You don't want to be out in the moonlight when that happens, and you know, like it's up to Frank Grillo to like defend his brother-in-law's family because his brother passed for some way or some reason. I don't know if they ever said specifically how he died, but you know, it's up to him to protect the wife Lucy and her daughter. The wife's played by LLFENESHHADERA. Tough first name, but the lady that played Lucy I recognize. She was in Baywatch and Highs to Lois. KATRINA Law played Dr. Amy Chen. Lou Diamond Phillips played Dr. Aranda. He's like famous from La Bamba, I think. But you know, there wasn't too crazy a cast in this. But you know, Frank Grillo reading the way as Dr. Wesley Marshall, you know, and he's like the person they need to, you know, they're trying to make some type of medicine, if you would, vaccination to protect themselves from becoming werewolves. And then of course by the end he's gotta become a werewolf himself to fight against a worse werewolf. And just in the nick of time he turns back, you know, like, and the sun comes through the window because the you know, they had to last through the night, and all of a sudden the sun comes up. He turns from a werewolf back to himself. You're left with a Frank Grillo standing in this woman's house, absolutely ripped. And I was just sitting there, I was like, God damn, Frank Grillo, so jacked. And then I looked up how old he is. Did you know Frank Grillo was 60 years old? They're making 60-year-olds different these days. Tom Cruise and this guy, 60 years old, doing the type of physiques that they got. I mean, Frank Grillo's physique is unbelievable, but Tom Cruise doing the type of stunts he's doing at 60 years old, these guys are nuts. They really are. And physiques have changed. When I was a kid, 60-year-olds did not look like this. I mean, shit, my father passed 2 years ago at 60, and he did not look like Frank Grillo. God damn. I don't know, pretty good movie. I'm not too mad at it. I think the actual werewolves themselves and like the way that they did it, I think they did like a mixture of like man in suit, animatronic, and CGI, and they didn't rely on CGI too much, I don't think. I think they did a very, very good mix of the practical thing, and I think, you know, they did maybe a couple of different werewolves in the practical thing instead of like just doing one really good one. I don't know, I think they could have done just like, instead of making it like there's a bunch of werewolves, which was scary at some points, you know, like they're surrounding our house, taking out the cameras, and it's like, oh shit, are these things smarter than animals, you know, are they retaining their human insights and shit? And I don't know, I think the story could have gone a little bit further, a little bit deeper into what was, you know, these characters and what was these, you know, the werewolves, and like they could have gone more, I think, into the story, but instead they were just kind of like, let's make like a, you know, hour and a half, hour 45 minute little werewolf action movie, Frank Grillo, you know, like, I don't know, I think the script and the story needed a little bit of work there. But the actual idea is not a bad idea. The supermoon, a bunch of werewolves, and then these guys have to fight for their lives and survive through the night type shit. And it's like, you know, a compelling werewolf story. It's a little bit different than your normal werewolf story. But as I was watching it, I go, I think I am very happy that Robert Eggers is doing a werewolf film that's set in the 1700s and this like medieval stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I think I prefer my werewolf stuff to be one monsterish werewolf, you know, like even Van Helsing, where it's like this older time, but it's like a werewolf fighting against Dracula. Like, I think I would rather prefer that, or like the old-timey 1700s medieval stuff, than like a modern day werewolf story. But for what it is, I thought it was pretty damn good, and, you know, it could have used a little work on the script. But as far as the cast, I mean, Frank Grillo did a pretty damn good job, and the werewolves themselves looked really damn good. And I think that practical effects and you know, monster makeup and stuff like this should return to films much more often. You know, like, why are we doing reboots of stuff that doesn't need to be reboots when we could do like remakes of things like 1953, the Creature from the Black Lagoon and stuff like that, like stuff that like are classics that, you know, not enough people have seen. You know, like I said that, I don't know if I've seen that movie, but it's on one of the streaming platforms recently. As I was scrolling through, I saw, I think, Prime, and, you know, I was like, damn, I started adding a bunch of the classics to my list, you know, even like The Wolfman Meets Frankenstein, you know, like stuff like that. Like, I love the classics. I love how, you know, the practical effects looked, and, you know, sure, they're campy and they're super old, but there's something to those classics and just the vibe of them, and why they're so iconic, and they, you know, hold their iconicism to this day, you know what I mean? Like, I really enjoy werewolf monster horror films the more I get into them. But scary for no reason, I'm not really into. But scared of monsters, or scared of that werewolf or that creature there, I can get behind that, and I can, you know, logically understand why we're scared of that thing. You know what I mean? In witches and creepy, abnormal, paranormal stuff, not for me. But werewolves, I can get behind. And overall, I gave this film 3, maybe 3.5 stars, but at the current moment, sitting at 3 stars on my Letterboxd, but a 6 out of 10. If I had to give it a true 10 score, it's probably like a 6.9 out of 10, honestly. Damn near a 7 out of 10, maybe even like a 7.1. Heading towards a 7. If I rewatched this, maybe my score would go up. Maybe it would go down, though. So at the current moment, sitting at a 3 out of 5 stars, about 6 out of 10. Not bad. I mean, its average score is a 2 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. I think it's better than that. You know, I would have put it at like a solid 3, maybe even a 3.5. You know, like, it's definitely not creeping towards a 2.5 or even a 2 star for me. It's definitely creeping up from just my first watch. And like the first 45 minutes, they were like prolonging the you know, showing us the werewolf, but the tension they were building was very good, you know, and like I was on the edge of my seat like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, and then finally when they first reveal the werewolf, it's like, you know, it's intense. It's like a good scene. So I was like, alright, well done. Worth it. Not the worst way to spend 90 minutes. I ain't mad. Go check this movie out for yourself on Hulu. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this movie down in the comment section below, or if you have any other werewolf or Halloween spooky season movies that you would like to recommend to me down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear those, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on horror movies and other classics in general, and let's chat more about movies and spooky season, and I will continue on spooky season, so stay tuned all the way through Halloween. There will be more spooky season movie reviews out on the channel. Thank you guys so much for stopping on by. If you've made it this far in the video and you would like to message me on my other social medias to chat more spooky season, links for those down in the description below. And if you made it this far and you'd like to support the channel, the best way to do that is liking this video, commenting down in the comment section below, subscribing if you haven't already, hitting that bell so you don't miss future spooky season movie reviews and you get the notifications when those come out. Once again, my name is Big Cam. Thank you guys so much for coming on by. Share this video with a friend, and I will see you beautiful people in the next one. Peace!